Hi everyone, this is Grace, and today I'll be walking you through how I made this engagement set. So let's go. Now, I actually made this for a dear childhood friend who got engaged recently, and the bride and groom both ride motorcycles, or is it the bride and groom to be? Anywho, they both love motorcycles. And so obviously, or not obviously, but I chose to make that part of the theme because these were surprise cookies for a surprise engagement party. And yeah, so didn't get any direct input from the bride. However, she is one of my best friends. So I was able to get a little bit of information out of her, like her favorite colors. So if you're a little like this color palette's interesting, well, I'm going to tell you that it's a mix of her favorite colors, which are aqua / turquoise, periwinkle blue, and sage green. And then I needed to add a little bit of some like brighter pop in there. So I added that mustard yellow. And then this here, usually I have white in the set, but for this one, because she is like a muted girly when it comes to her color palette. So I thought doing this vanilla bean paste colored icing was the perfect thing to do. For this one, you just take normal icing, white icing, and then you add vanilla bean paste to it. I only use Nielsen Massey. That is in my Amazon shop. Find it on Amazon. It is expensive. Doesn't take a lot. And just keep in mind that it will thin your icing. So like start at the thickest consistency you can, especially if you need like a medium peak with this color. In this case, I wanted something somewhere between like a soft and a medium peak for the lettering. So that was a little challenging. And I did add a little bit of ivory to the icing as well with a toothpick, not a lot, just because I felt like it wasn't giving kind of the depth of color I was hoping for, but I wanted those speckles, which I just absolutely love. Like it just gives me cozy vibes. And then Emily also loves flowers. I mean, who doesn't love flowers? Oh yeah, oh my goodness. I'm completely blanking on the name of the purple flower in this set. Someone tell me in the comments. Oh my goodness. I could pause this video and look it up, but I'm not going to. Maybe it'll come to me. This video is 24 minutes long, so you never know. So when I went to design this set, I started out with the motorcycle. I knew I was going to do motorcycle. And actually, I made birthday cookies for Emily's 30th birthday, and I also included a motorcycle in that one. But for that one, the motorcycle was a silhouette motorcycle, and it took forever to pipe. And I was like, I'm not doing that this time, because I had over like 40 cookies to make, and I was like, I'm not doing that. And the other thing I had to keep in mind is that I was actually flying with these cookies. Better than shipping them, but certainly not ideal. So as I was coming up with the designs, I also had to keep that in mind. I will say I'd give myself like a B+, A- on the design concepts in terms of how they were going to fare traveling. This one here, I was a little nervous about because you'll see that the motorcycle is a continuous line drawing. And I find that line work like that, especially overlapping line work, is very prone to crushing. But that's why, one of the reasons why I added this extra flower greenery stuff on the edge to kind of protect it in a way. And I would say it did a decent job, but I still got some smushes, which is okay. And I certainly kept this in mind when I was choosing like what floral arrangement of sorts to do. I wanted to keep it pretty simple. The purple that I'm doing, I'll talk more about that later, but it's actually a slightly thinner consistency than what you would normally do, because I didn't want it to be super pokey, if that made sense. Now, this continuous line drawing, I didn't come up with this myself. I did find it. I purchased like the image on the internet from, I can't remember which website. And I was originally going to use my projector to do it perfectly. And then as I was doing this set, I was going to use a projector for this, and then I have lettering on 2 cookies, and I was going to use it for that as well. But as I was decorating, I was like, I cannot be bothered to get my projector out. So the lettering I knew I could do without a projector, but this continuous line drawing, I was like, y'all, I don't know. I don't know. Because you get one shot with this, like it one and done. And I will say I got all of them quote unquote right, except for one. There's a little like oopsies, not continuous moment, but that's fine. Um, I'm and when I was piping that, I was actually holding the photo with my left hand, like, within my peripheral vision so that I could see it while I was piping that. Gotta say I'm pretty proud of myself. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 designs in this set. I very easily came up with 4 designs. That was the motorcycle. You'll see the flowers, of course, the main plaque with their names on it, and then I came up with this myself. I mean, not like the phrase, but I came up with the theme "Enjoy the Ride," which I thought was such a cute theme. And so those 4 cookies are all relatively complicated. And if you've watched any of my videos, heard me talk about how I design my sets, you would know that it's always really important to me that there be at least one, if not 2, super simple designs in a set for a couple of reasons. One is just for purely practical. Like, if I were to have to make 40 of those complicated cookies, like, it's just exhausting. It takes a lot of time. And so, for logistical reasons, I want to have 1 or 2 less complicated designs so I can kind of crank those out. Sometimes, depending on how many cookies I'm making, I will also make a lot more of those simple designs than the more complicated stuff just to make my life easier. And the second reason is I think visually it's important to have less complicated cookies, in my opinion, to balance out the more complex ones. Now, in this case, I was like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? And I also was keeping in mind the fact these were going to be flying with me. So I wanted to do something that was foolproof in all the ways in terms of execution, in terms of flying with it. So I came up with this, well, not came up, but like I have this wet on wet design. I wasn't sure if it was going to look too like Christmassy because it's a wreath execution and you'll see this, but I did the wreath with the white and then I added the flowers with the colors of the flowers in the set. Um, and in this case, you're going to see that I actually pull through twice. And that's because I really wanted like a good flow. And you'll see the second pull through really catches like the whimsy on that pull, I think, a lot better. And then I added the flowers in real quick. So the beauty of this being all wet on wet is that it's all flat, right? So that's like the best thing to have to package and fly with because there's nothing on the top that's going to smush. Um, yeah. So it's a weird phenomenon with royal icing because my royal icing does dry hard, but without fail, lettering, line work, flowers, like small detail piping stuff still smushes. Even if it's a medium peak, it still smushes, which is like super frustrating. I don't get it, but here we are. So I like this design. It's really simple, but I think it balances everything out nicely. And I just did a heart because obviously like it's an engagement set. So add a heart. And another element of how I design sets is I always want each, like at least one cookie to have a flood base of each color. So it also didn't have a flood base of the periwinkle blue. Debatable if you want to call that periwinkle blue or purple, whatever. I was aiming for periwinkle blue. I think I was maybe a little shy of that, but that's okay. So that was just another way to balance out the colors of the set as well, with that periwinkle blue. So this one is the Enjoy the Ride cookie. And I'm particularly proud of this one too. So this little circle in the corner is the motorcycle wheel. And yeah, it's the motorcycle wheel. So that's going to tie in the ride portion of this. Hold on a second. I just had a momentary brain fart on how I made the sage green color, and I figured that was worth going back to my iPad to look at my notes. I did, however, still forget to look up the flowers in this. Oh, wait, it's on my iPad. It's on my iPad. Is it? Is it? Is it? So I design all of my sets on my iPad, which is what I'm currently looking at. Okay, here we go. Delphinium, that's what they're called. Okay. And I use, for anyone that's curious, I use the Notability app. It's not Procreate, it's not that fancy, but for me, it gets the job done. And it's very much the level of, how do I say, like technology that I want to use. But anyway, so this sage green here is 2 parts leaf green, 1 part orange, 1 part royal blue. I did not come up with this. I Googled it. Someone on the internet said it. And for this set, I did two darknesses, two saturations of this sage green. This is just, so the way that I did that was that I colored the much darker sage green first, and then I took a couple of ounces of that and added it into my pure white. So it's the exact same color, just lighter. Now, the little twist on this one, I haven't, ooh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I knocked the microphone. I have not worked with parchment paper in forever. There was a time when parchment paper was all the rage in cookies in Royal Icing like a couple years ago, and I used it a ton. And I don't know, since I've like gotten more into classes, I just haven't. I don't know, because like you got to wait for it to dry a really long time, anyway, et cetera, et cetera. I just launched, or I'm about to launch a new class though, which does include parchment paper, and it's my first ever class with parchment paper, so that's exciting. Now that parchment paper there, I used to always let it dry overnight, and this time around, like I really pushed the limits, because some people I know will lift parchment paper after like half an hour, and I'm like, y'all are crazy. But in this case, it was probably in the few hours range. I usually just like peel off the tiny corner of one just to test it, and you'll know right away because it should come off cleanly. Now, because I know people are gonna ask, what is the font for this is Hello Honey. I get all of my fonts for the most part from dafont.com, or is it dafont.com? I don't know. I always say da font in my head. And so, well, I guess I don't know. Is this really the same font? It's more or less. I took my inspiration for my execution from this font, but it's definitely just me freehanding pressure piped writing. And that's it. I love this one. I mean, I love them all. They make me so happy. Also, I love making cookies out of love. Like, I will always put more effort into cookies that I do just out of love. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like that's with like any art form though. When it's just out of pure love, it just hits different, right? So this one is the featuring the delphinium. And I wanted to do something a little bit different for the base. Because I always like to have one of each color. I like to differentiate like the textures and the bases. Part of that's visual, but part of it is I'm a content creator, and so I like to have as much variety in how the cookies start as possible. So for this one, I decided to paint the base. Now what you're seeing me do here is I painted it with the flood consistency, but I wanted there to be texture, so I had to kind of keep working with it until the icing had started to slightly crust, just so that I could create a little bit more texture, because when I was first painting it, it was just like melting into each other and being really flat. So I wanted a little bit of texture. And then you want to let that dry for like 10 to 15 minutes. And then I'm going in with the little bouquet here, just alternating the darker sage with the lighter sage. And these cookie cutters, this cookie cutter is from Brighton Cutters. The heart is from Brighton Cutters. That Enjoy the Ride was also Brighton Cutters, and the motorcycle. The last one is Kaleidocuts, I want to say. So this is all soft peak piping consistency here. This yellow, is this a real flower? I don't know. It just looks cute and simple. I wanted something to kind of pop against the delphinium, and the delphinium is really like, I guess not all technically that densely done or whatever, but obviously the way I'm going to execute it is pretty dense. So I wanted something with a little more negative space to kind of balance it out. And this here, if I recall correctly, is the Wilton 16 tip. It's the smallest open star tip they have. Um, and I was a little worried it was going to be too big for this, but it was just the right size. And like I said, this consistency, I say just the right size, but like I'm not applying a lot of pressure here because obviously like the more pressure that you apply, the bigger the piping is going to be. Now, like I said, I did a slightly thinner consistency here. Normally, I would do flowers like this with a medium peak, but I wanted them to look a little more melted, if that's the right word, and have them stick up less. So they're a little more flat. And that's why I did somewhere between a soft and a medium peak. I think this is the last cookie. Yeah. So this is going to take forever. So while I do this, I'm going to tell you some more things about this set. One of which is how I mixed the other colors. So, like I said, this is a Kaleidacuts cutter. Okay, so the colors. So I already talked about the sage green. It was 2 parts leaf green, 1 part orange, 1 part royal blue. For the ivory white, I did the vanilla bean paste plus a tiny bit of ivory. And you can use like my favorite brands of ivory. I think the Sugar Art has ivory, and does Chef Master? I don't know. I've never used Chef Master, but I have AmeriColor. And then for the yellow gold, I used the Sugar Art Autumn Gold plus a tiny bit of lemon yellow because I wanted it to be a little bit brighter. The periwinkle blue is Wilton Pink plus Chef Master Sky Blue. So I find the Wilton Pink with my lemon icing is a much brighter, like Barbie pink. Other brands, I get more of like a watermelon pink. So I wanted a bright purple, essentially, that was heavy on the blue. So I went with pink plus blue, and then I usually use royal blue, but I wanted a much, again, like brighter, purer blue to mix with it. So I did sky blue instead, which I think if I recall correctly is like considered the pure blue, whatever. So I mixed those together, and that's heavy on the blue. For the turquoise, or the aqua, whatever you want to call this, I actually just used the Sugar Art turquoise, and that was it. It is a beautiful, stunning, bright turquoise. If you don't have that, I would use that sky blue again, and then add a tiny bit of lemon yellow until you get it just right. Now, I will say, so when I was putting these colors together, this dark sage green here, I was kind of imagining was kind of like the equivalent to the black. Not that every set needs to have white and black, but it's kind of the idea that I think every set looks really good when there's like a white and a really dark color. Again, you don't have to have that, but I think it's nice for the contrast. So I played around here with making this a pretty dark green, but not too dark. I did actually end up the morning of making an extra batch of icing and taking out a few ounces of every color because I felt like they were oversaturated. I really wanted, especially with the periwinkle blue and the turquoise, I wanted like bright colors. And when they start to get oversaturated, they lose their brightness and they become rich, which are beautiful colors, but that's not the effect that I wanted with the set. Largely because those aren't the bride's favorite colors. Like she likes a bright periwinkle blue. She likes a bright turquoise. Now the leaves that I'm doing here, I'm actually doing pressure piping, and this is all soft peak. So what you're doing is you pipe a dot, and as you pull away from the dot, you pull towards the cookie. So you're creating this teardrop effect, and it is a lot to think about all at once. So pipe a dot, pull away, and pipe a dot, pull away. What am I trying to say? Pipe a dot, pull away, pull towards the cookie. This is the same technique that you use like when you're doing, what's that called? Great question, Grace. Knit technique. Whew. But those are like braided together. In this case, you're just doing an individual one. And again, knowing that I was going to have to package these and bring them on a plane, it's important to like really keep the ends of those leaves towards the cookie because it's very easy to like lift up and then the very end of the leaf is pointy, and that's the kind of thing that can very easily flake off into the cellophane bag. And there are a couple of those. I mean, I was not perfect. You can see on like the right side there are a couple that are kind of sticking up. Yeah, okay. What else can I say about this? Oh, I prefer to do the leaves. I prefer to do all of this all at once. Like I don't recommend doing like having an assembly line of these and doing them in stages. The reason I don't recommend that is that the icing will start to crust over, and when you're placing, unless it completely dries, chances are it's going to be in the drying process, and it's really easy to knock into the icing and you're going to like crack the surface and it just doesn't look good. So it's so much easier to do this when the icing is wet. And as long as you're using the proper consistencies, like it's a proper soft peak, like it's not going to like melt into each other, if that makes sense. So I'm adding the little essence of delphinium, and then I don't know what these yellow ones are. Don't ask me. They're just yellow blobs. This is taking real inspiration from how this Sweet Sugar Belle does her flowers, or like her simple flowers. Because again, I needed to make something that was shipping friendly, essentially. I could have done basically the same concept with like a another clothes star tip, but that would have made the flowers much too large. I wanted them just to be kind of small little blobs, and then added a little bit of this pop of the white just to fill in some of the spaces. And I also feel like these little pops of white help tie in the lettering, which is ultimately going to be white as well, or off-white. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about that. This the white is somewhere between a soft and a medium peak, and that's because I really wanted to make sure that the lettering didn't get crushed. It might even be closer to a medium peak. So you're going to see as I do this pressure piping that you're going to see little jaggedness as I pipe this, which is totally fine. Whoops. I am obviously freehanding this based off of the font that I had downloaded. I really like, this is probably my favorite way to pipe lettering, this pressure piping. It is very hard to do though. You apply more pressure as you pipe downstrokes, and you release pressure as you pipe upstrokes. I do find that if your icing is too thin though, especially like this is kind of a small space, kind of small lettering, you have to be really careful because it's super easy for the lettering to really melt into each other, which is not ideal. A Okay, that's it. So this is I call this like the motorcycle engagement, Emily engagement. Enjoy the ride. Gotta love it. As always, I hope y'all learned a thing or two. Maybe you will attempt some of these designs, or maybe you just enjoyed listening to me talking. Maybe you're asleep by now. Who knows? I look forward to the next video, and thank you so much for spending the last 24 minutes with me. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.